The Extinction Protocol. The observation deck of Nova Colony offered the most breathtaking view in human-controlled space. Commander Kai Reeves stood with his hands clasped behind his back, gazing through the massive transparent dome at Epsilon Eridani's rust-colored landscape. 10 years of terraforming had transformed the once barren planet into humanity's most ambitious colony, a home to over 30,000 pioneers who believed in expanding the human footprint among the stars. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Elise Nakamura joined him at the viewport, her reflection appearing beside his in the polished surface. As Nova Colony's chief xenobiologist, she had overseen the introduction of Earth-compatible flora that now crept across the planet's surface in expanding patches of green. "We've accomplished something remarkable here," Reeves agreed. "Sometimes I forget what it looked like when we first arrived." "Command wants the next atmospheric processing station operational by the end of the month," Elise said, scrolling through her tablet. "The nitrogen levels are still." An alarm cut through their conversation, its urgent wail echoing through the observation deck. Reeves' comm unit buzzed at his wrist. "Commander, of the 30,000 colonists, fewer than 3,000 escaped." Reeves' shuttle carried 27 survivors, including Elise, who sat silently clutching a data core containing years of research. "Why?" someone whispered in the crowded compartment. "We did nothing to provoke this." Reeves had no answer. He could only watch as the Harbinger vessels methodically reduced Nova Colony to ruins, then began bombarding the terraformed sections of the planet's surface with weapons that seemed designed to revert the atmosphere to its original state. The journey back to Earth took 3 months in the emergency shuttle. 3 months of rationed supplies, recycled air, and haunted silence. 3 months for the survivors to replay those final moments, searching for meaning in the unprovoked destruction. When they finally reached Earth, they found a changed world. News of Nova Colony's fall had preceded them, carried by automated distress beacons. For the first time in over a century, the nations of Earth had united with a single purpose. Reeves was immediately summoned to the United Earth Defense Council headquarters in Geneva, where Admiral Helena Cheng waited with a grim expression. "Commander Reeves," she said, foregoing the usual pleasantries, "I need your first-hand account of everything that happened." For hours, Reeves recounted every detail, while teams of analysts dissected his report. When he finished, Admiral Cheng activated a holographic display showing Earth's orbital shipyards. "What you're seeing is humanity's response," she said as the image expanded to reveal thousands of warships in various stages of construction. "Every nation, every corporation, every resource we have is being directed toward a single goal." Reeves stared at the display in awe. "How many?" "When finished, 700,000, Cheng replied. "The Reclamation Fleet, the largest military force ever assembled in human history. 700,000 ships." Reeves could hardly comprehend the number. "The Harbingers made a critical mistake," Cheng said, her eyes hard as flint. "They showed us exactly what we're facing, then left survivors to tell the tale. We now know their weapons, their tactics, and their apparent objective: to erase human expansion." Over the next 6 months, Reeves worked closely with Fleet Command, helping design countermeasures against Harbinger technology. Dr. Nakamura's research proved invaluable, revealing that the aliens' weapons were specifically calibrated to reverse terraforming processes. "They're environmental purists of some kind," she theorized during one strategy session. "They seem to object to our modification of planets to suit human needs. Whatever their motivation, humanity's response was unprecedented. Old rivalries were set aside as Earth's nations pooled their resources. The shipyards operated continuously, producing vessels equipped with newly developed defenses against Harbinger weapons. When Admiral Cheng offered Reeves command of the 7th Battle Group, comprising 100,000 ships, he accepted without hesitation. The survivors of Nova Colony were scattered throughout the fleet, each carrying the memory of what had been lost. On the eve of the fleet's departure, Reeves stood on the bridge of the EDF Redemption, the most advanced dreadnought ever constructed by human hands. Through the viewport, he could see ships stretching into the distance, their running lights mirroring the stars beyond. Admiral Cheng addressed the assembled fleet, her voice broadcasting to every vessel. For the first time in our history, humanity faces an existential threat from beyond our solar system. The harbingers struck without provocation, without warning, and without mercy. They believe we will submit to their judgment of how we should exist in this galaxy. She paused, looking at each officer on the command deck before continuing. They do not understand humans very well. A hush fell over the bridge as the coordinates were locked in. The reclamation fleet would follow the harbinger's ion trail back to their point of origin and deliver humanity's answer. As the massive fleet prepared to depart, Reeves thought of Nova Colony's ruins. The harbingers had unleashed something they couldn't possibly have anticipated. Humanity's most primal instinct, to survive, no matter the cost. "All vessels report ready, Commander," his executive officer announced. Reeves nodded, his face set with cold determination. "Signal the fleet. Operation Eternal Light is now active." 700,000 warships engaged their drives simultaneously, creating a brilliant constellation that momentarily outshone the stars themselves as humanity launched its response to extinction. Operation Eternal Light. The void between stars held no sound, but if it could, the approach of humanity's reclamation fleet would have been deafening. 700,000 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant suns. At their center, the EDF Redemption led the way, its massive frame housing the most devastating weapons humanity had ever conceived. Commander Kai Reeves stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display where the Harbinger home system glowed like an ember in the darkness. 6 months of pursuing their ion trail had led to this moment. "Final approach to the Harbinger system in 30 minutes, announced Navigation Officer Lin. "All battle groups report ready." Reeves nodded, his expression unchanged. The weight of Nova Colony's destruction still pressed upon him, but the anger had crystallized into something colder and more focused. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring humanity's survival. "Deploy reconnaissance drones," he ordered. "Maximum dispersal pattern. I want complete system mapping before we commit." The drones scattered ahead of the fleet, invisible against the backdrop of space. Within hours, they began transmitting data that painted a surprising picture of the Harbinger civilization. "Sir," said Intelligence Officer Maya Santos, the same officer who had first detected the Harbingers at Nova Colony. "You need to see this." The main screen displayed images of a solar system unlike anything they had expected. The Harbinger homeworld orbited a massive blue giant star, but rather than adapting the planet to their needs as humans would have done, the Harbingers had adapted themselves. Their cities floated in the upper atmosphere, drawing energy directly from their star's intense radiation. The planet below remained untouched, a pristine ball of toxic gases and extreme pressure. "They live in harmony with their environment," Dr. Nakamura observed, studying the readings. "No terraforming, no resource extraction beyond what naturally replenishes." "Check the other planets," Reeves instructed, a new suspicion forming in his mind. The data confirmed his theory. Throughout the system, Harbinger settlements existed without altering their surroundings. Even their space stations were designed to minimize their impact on the cosmic environment. "They're environmental preservationists," Reeves realized aloud. "They don't just practice this philosophy, they enforce it." Admiral Cheng's hologram appeared on the command platform. "Your assessment, Commander." "I believe they attacked Nova Colony because they saw our terraforming as an abomination," Reeves replied. "They're not expansionist or resource-hungry. They're ideological. They want to preserve natural environments at all costs, including the cost of 30,000 human lives." Cheng reminded him coldly. "Yes, Admiral, but understanding their motivation might help us determine if negotiation is possible." Cheng's expression hardened. "The Defense Council has been clear, Commander. Operation Eternal Light is not a diplomatic mission." Before Reeves could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple contacts. Santos called out. Harbinger vessels approaching from the system's edge. The Harbinger fleet numbered only in the thousands, a fraction of humanity's armada, but they moved with the same unnervingly perfect coordination they had displayed at Nova Colony. All battle groups, defensive formation Alpha, Reeves ordered. Weapons systems armed but hold fire until my command. The human fleet responded instantly, 700,000 ships arranging themselves into a massive sphere, weapons trained outward. It was an overwhelming display of force, designed to make the Harbingers reconsider their previous judgment of humanity. To everyone's surprise, the Harbinger fleet stopped its advance just outside weapons range. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. "Sir," Communications Officer Park called out, "we're receiving a transmission. I think they're trying to communicate." "On screen," Reeves ordered. The main display flickered before resolving into the image of a being unlike anything human eyes had seen before. It appeared to be composed of translucent layers that shifted like smoke, with numerous appendages that merged and separated in fluid motions. Only its eyes seemed solid, 3 pupilless orbs that glowed with inner light. "Humans," the being spoke, its voice a harmonic resonance that seemed to bypass the speakers and vibrate directly in their minds. "You have pursued us across the void with weapons of destruction. Your response confirms our initial judgment." Reeves stepped forward. "Your attack on Nova Colony was unprovoked. We've come to ensure it never happens again." "Your colony violated the natural order," the Harbinger replied. "You transform worlds to suit yourselves rather than adapting to them. The pattern is clear: expansion, consumption, destruction. We have witnessed it in 100 species before you. All led to ruin." Understanding dawned on Reeves. "You believe you're preventing a greater catastrophe. We are the preservers," the being confirmed. "For millennia, we have maintained the balance of life in this sector. Species that alter planetary ecosystems invariably proceed to strip mine asteroids, harvest gas giants, and eventually weaponize stellar matter. The pattern cannot be broken once it begins." Admiral Chang's hologram flickered beside Reeves. "They appointed themselves the galaxy's environmental police," she said with undisguised contempt, "and executed 30,000 of our people based on a theory." The Harbinger, or Preserver, seemed to ripple with emotion. "We acted to prevent billions of deaths later. Your fleet's size and power only validate our assessment." A tense silence fell over the bridge. The reclamation fleet held position, 700,000 ships poised to deliver humanity's judgment upon the self-appointed judges. With a single command, Reeves could unleash a fury that would ensure the Preservers never threatened another human settlement. But a different thought had taken root in his mind. "Admiral," he said quietly, "request permission to attempt a different approach." "The Defense Council's orders were clear," Chang replied, but there was hesitation in her voice. "We built this fleet to ensure humanity's survival," Reeves argued. "What if there's a way to achieve that without destruction? We could demonstrate that their assessment of our species is flawed." After a long pause, Chang nodded. "You have 1 hour, Commander. Make it count." Reeves turned back to the alien being. "You believe you know humanity's path based on patterns you've observed in other species. I propose to show you how we differ." What followed was unprecedented in human history. Reeves ordered the transmission of data packages showing Earth's environmental restoration projects, the rigorous sustainability requirements for new colonies, and the international laws governing cosmic development. Dr. Nakamura presented research on minimal-impact terraforming technologies that worked with planetary ecosystems rather than overriding them. "We adapt planets to our needs." "Yes," Reeves explained, "but we've learned to do so while preserving their essential nature, and we continue to adapt ourselves as well." The Preserver remained silent as the information flowed. Finally, it spoke. "Words and data can be falsified. Demonstrate your claims." Reeves exchanged glances with his officers before making a decision that sent ripples of shock through the fleet. "Battle Group 7 will accompany your representatives to the Nova Colony system. There, we will show you our commitment to restoration." For 2 weeks, 100,000 human ships traveled alongside a contingent of preserver vessels back to Epsilon Eridani. Upon arrival, Reeves ordered a demonstration of the latest environmental restoration technologies. Rather than re-terraforming the planet to human needs, the fleet deployed systems designed to accelerate the planet's return to its natural state. We acknowledge that our earlier approaches were more invasive than necessary, Reeves explained to the preserver emissary as they watched the work progress. But we learn and adapt. It's what humans do best. The preserver observed silently, its form shifting in patterns that the human scientists had begun to recognize as thoughtfulness. In all our history, it finally said, no species has ever voluntarily reversed their environmental impact. Perhaps you've been too quick to judge based on partial information, Reeves suggested. Not all patterns are universal. When they returned to the preserver system, an unprecedented diplomatic exchange began. The remaining 600,000 ships of the reclamation fleet maintained their position, a reminder of humanity's resolve, while representatives from both sides worked to establish understanding. Admiral Cheng arrived personally for the final negotiations. The Defense Council is divided, she told Reeves privately. Half want to press our advantage and ensure the preservers can never threaten us again. The other half see an opportunity for something more valuable than victory. The agreement that emerged was unlike anything in human diplomatic history. The preservers acknowledged humanity's right to expand, with the condition that all colonies implement the new minimal impact environmental protocols developed jointly by both species. In return, humans would share their adaptive technologies, allowing the preservers to experience environments that would otherwise be inaccessible to them. 1 year after the destruction of Nova Colony, Commander Kai Reeves stood once again on an observation deck, this time aboard a new station orbiting Epsilon Eridani. Beside him stood Dr. Nakamura and a preserver emissary, watching as the planet below continued its return to its natural state. We're establishing the new colony on the second moon, Nakamura explained, pointing to a small satellite visible against the planet's surface. The environment there can support human life with minimal modification. The preserver's form shimmered in what they had come to recognize as approval. And the monument. Reeves gestured to a structure taking shape on the planet's surface, a memorial to those lost in the conflict, designed to weather the elements for millennia without disrupting the recovering ecosystem. A reminder, Reeves said, of what happens when we fail to understand each other, and of what's possible when we choose a different path. In the space above them, ships from both civilizations moved in coordinated patterns, no longer arrayed for battle, but engaged in the delicate work of building something new. The 700,000 warships of the reclamation fleet had been gradually repurposed, many now serving as exploration vessels or environmental monitoring platforms. Humanity had come to the edge of extinction and returned with something unexpected. Not just survival, but the wisdom to thrive in harmony with the cosmos and its other inhabitants. The preservers had misjudged humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. For in humanity's response to destruction, they had witnessed not just the capacity for overwhelming force, but something far more rare in the galaxy, the ability to choose a different future, even when standing at the precipice of victory. 700,000 warships, the preserver mused, its voice resonating in their minds. Built for retribution, used for restoration. Perhaps this is the pattern we've been waiting for all along.